Hey everyone, it's Amy Nakos. I hope this video finds you doing awesome. It's October 6th, 2021, and I wanted to give you an update on the current status of the short-term rental permits and restrictions in Summit County. This is going to be a general overview. I have notes, so I'm going to be looking down at my notes because there's kind of a lot. And note that this is October 6th, so that this may or may not be the most up-to-date information if you're finding this on YouTube. There's a lot of confusion going on right now. I'm getting a number of calls from clients and people about, do I need a permit? Can I get a permit? What's going on with my existing permit? And I think the thing to understand is that there's new rules and then there's exceptions to those rules. There's deadlines and then there's exceptions to those deadlines. So every analysis of every property is pretty specific and pretty in-depth, but my conversation with you is going to be about the general rules, okay? If you get caught in the middle of one of these situations where we're really having to analyze dates, deadlines, and exact situations, you can feel free to reach out to me, but you're also going to want to reach out to whatever governmental agency is governing your property. Having said that, I just put out a different video which will give you a lesson on how to figure out if your property is actually in a town or if it's in unincorporated Summit County. So we're going to talk right now about Breckenridge and Summit County unincorporated areas. Those are the two areas where we have action happening. I do have a blog post on my website that goes through every single jurisdiction, but these are the two with the action going on. So Breckenridge, September 28th, Breckenridge passed legislation to limit short-term rental licenses to 2,200 total. But that's 2,200 non-exempt total. So there's the exception. This will take effect November 2nd. If you own a property in Breckenridge and you want to get a short-term rental license, you have until November 2nd to apply for that. If you are under contract to purchase a property, there are some specific rules about how to manage that. Right now, we heard from the Breckenridge Town Council at their last meeting that there are around 3,000 existing non-exempt licenses. So that means that there are 800 more licenses than are allowed. So since my last update, when I updated this before, an additional 500 people came in, around 500, and got their license applications in. So that's bringing the existing number up to around 3,000. Now, there's 3,000, but there can only be 2,200. What's going to happen? So the town of Breckenridge is not going to take away anybody's license. They are actually going to get down to 2,200 by the process of attrition, either by people selling their property. So the property they're selling has a short-term rental license. They're selling it. The license does not go with the property. The new buyer would have to get in line on a list to get a short-term rental license when one opens up below the 2,200 number. And I'll talk about those numbers in just a bit. There are around 1,500 additional licenses that are exempt. Those are licenses that do not count towards the 2,200. They are in properties that the town considers, high resort rental properties. You can see a list of these in my blog post. If you are under contract on a property before September 27th, you have a little bit more time to apply for a license. They came up with a few more exceptions if you are transferring property within a family, and you can go through those specific issues if you think it might apply to you. Also, there is a way to get a short-term rental license extension of an existing short-term rental license with a sale if there are rentals on the books that have to be honored. So we have to take care of those rentals and make sure that those are being accommodated. And new construction units also have their own procedure. So if you are in one of those situations, you'll want to look at those specific rules. So again, you have up until November 2nd to apply if you already own the property. All right, how are we going to get down to 2,200? I wanted to break the numbers down for you a little bit on this. So if we're up to 3,000, it means we have an additional 800 licenses that are going to have to be, what do I want to say? Given up, lost. So I ran some numbers, and so in the last 12 months, if I just look in my MLS in Breckenridge, and so the way that I decided if it was in town Breckenridge or not is I looked to see whether there was a 1% transfer tax on it. And so that's the in-town properties. If it's Summit County unincorporated areas, then it would not have the 1% transfer tax. So in the last 12 months, 517 properties have sold in town Breckenridge. I then subtracted the best I could the properties that fall under the exemption, which is around 86 according to my math. I could have missed a few subdivisions. I was like literally manually counting. So that leaves us with 431 total properties sold in a year in Breckenridge. And so that's a year ago from today. So if we have to get down 800, and let's just say that we have the same level of properties selling and that everybody, that market has continued to stay at this level, even with this restriction, we're looking at about 2 years before anybody who buys a property would even get a short-term rental license. So people would have to understand if you're buying a property in town Breck, you're not an exempt property, and you want to get a short-term rental license, you're waiting a minimum of 2 years. I think it's going to be more like 5 or 6 years by the time this actually shakes through. That's my own analysis. So that's Breckenridge for you. Again, I have a full blog post on this. It has links to the actual legislation, and it has links to the staff report. So you can get more information. I'm just summarizing here. Moving on. I'm at 7 minutes, so we're going to talk about unincorporated Summit County. Unincorporated Summit County. How do you know if you're in unincorporated Summit County? Like I mentioned earlier, I have a Loom video. You can find it on my blog about how to find out if you're in a town or if you're in unincorporated Summit County. If you're in unincorporated Summit County, we have the Board of County Commissioners who are looking to make some new rules about short-term rental licenses. So they put a moratorium on the issuance of any short-term rental licenses until mid-December. And so that was a 12-week moratorium. This moratorium, however, has exceptions. So it does not apply to any properties in Copper, none in Copper Mountain, none in Keystone, including the ranch and including the single family homes back there, none in the 4 o'clock subdivision in Breckenridge, which happens to be county governed, and the Ski Watch condo in Breckenridge, which is a condo complex that's right on the run. So if you are in any of those areas or have a property there and it sells or transfers, or you don't have a license and you want to get one, that's pretty much unrestricted. You can get a license whenever you want. You can sell your property and get the license. So that's Copper, Keystone, 4 o'clock subdivision in Breckenridge, Ski Watch in Breckenridge, okay? Those are not part of this conversation. Don't need to worry about a short-term rental license. Sidebar, I think that that's actually going to cause those markets to do really, really well because of the lack of the restriction. Board of County Commissioners, then everything else that they govern, I'll go through some of the neighborhoods in a bit, they are having community meetings in the next 3 weeks to get input from citizens about this. Some things they're looking at: incentive programs for doing long-term rentals. They have defined different zones, resort zones versus neighborhood zones for how they're going to regulate. And they're also looking at 3 levels of short-term rental licenses. So one would be, I'm an owner and I want to rent out a room. Another one is I'm a second homeowner and I'm going to rent out casually. And the third is I'm an investor and I just rent it out. So they're looking at different levels of licenses. So what they had said previously, and I think that this might still be subject to change, but what they had said previously is that neighborhood areas, or areas that they want to consider neighborhoods where they're going to have higher regulations, are as follows: Dillon Valley, Woodmore, which is up on Baldy and Breckenridge, Wilderness, entire Wilderness. If you know this market, you know Wilderness has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units. So that's the area above Lowe's in Silverthorne, all of it. Frisco. Frisco has some unincorporated areas. Terrace subdivision, Evergreen. They didn't mention Wyborg, but that's a different subdivision, which is probably also going to be covered. Lakeview Meadows. Mesa Cortina. Mesa Cortina is above Wilderness, so Wilderness and Mesa Cortina, the whole area. Summit Cove. Summit Cove. Giant area of homes. The entire section of Summit Cove is going to be considered under the neighborhood, I guess, definition. What you may or may not know is from the town of Breckenridge, when you go south on Highway 9, you hit Blue River, and then Blue River, you can see this in my blog, you know, you can see what they're talking about in terms of short-term rental regulations, nothing at the time, but after Blue River, there's two subdivisions that are no longer in Blue River, and these are the last two subdivisions before you get up to Hoosier Pass. Those are Alpine Breck and Quandary Village. Lots of single-family homes up there. That falls under the Summit County jurisdiction. And then Peak 7. Peak 7 is an entire swatch of single-family homes that are just north of Breckenridge, just off of Airport Road. So those are the areas that the Summit County government is looking to consider as neighborhoods. We don't know what's going to happen with them. They're still working on their legislation and, like I said, meeting with community members to best draft it and find a way to, you know, balance. Really what we're balancing here is individual property rights and affordable housing. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Good to see you all. I guess you're seeing me, but if I can be of assistance, please let me know. And again, I have more resources on my website and hope you're all doing fantastic. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.